The Opel Ascona C is the third and final generation of the Opel Ascona family line and was produced by Opel from 1981 to 1988. It was one of General Motors' global J-car models and was built in several countries, including Germany, Belgium, the UK, Brazil and many others. In the UK, the same car was sold as the Vauxhall Cavalier, and in Latin America, for example in Brazil, it was sold as the Chevrolet Monza. The Ascona C marked a clear technical shift, as it used a transverse front-engine front-wheel drive layout to improve interior space and economy compared with the earlier rear-wheel drive Ascona generations. The Ascona arrived as a family or a large family D-segment car with clean, simple 1980s styling, such as straight lines, a gently sloping nose, and a squared rear. Opel offered it as a 2 and 4-door saloon and as a cabriolet and as a 5-door hatchback, as some marketed uh, also as the Combi Coupe or the Manta or the Ascona CC. The hatchback gave buyers usable flexibility and helped the Ascona compete with compact and mid-size rivals that were moving to hatchback bodies, and the car's aerodynamics were reasonable for the era and packaging was improved because the engine was mounted transversely. When the Opel Ascona C was launched in 1981, it was called the C1 phase as it was presented as a very clean and modern 1980s design, and the body basically was all about straight edges, sharp lines, and practicality. And Opel offered it in 3 body styles, as said before. And the hatchback, the 5-door hatchback, gave the car extra practicality, while the saloon versions retained a more traditional mid-size family car image. The front featured rectangular headlights, slim bumpers, and a sloping bonnet that improved aerodynamics compared to the older Ascona B, and in 1984, Opel introduced the C2 facelift. The updates were subtle but noticeable as well, as the car had a revised front with a new grille design, more integrated headlights, and wider plastic bumpers that replaced the earlier slimmer units. The taillights also were reshaped a bit, giving the car a more modern look, and the overall impression became softer and less angular, reflecting the mid-1980s styling trends. And by the time of the C3 update in 1987, Opel made further refinements as bumper and side trims were again modernized, usually in body color on higher trims. The headlamps and grille designs became more aerodynamic and integrated, visually linking the Ascona with the upcoming successor, the Vectra A, and new wheel covers and alloy designs also appeared for the car. The changes gave the Ascona a gradual evolution from an early very angular 1980s car to a smoother and more refined shape of the C3, keeping it competitive against newer rivals. The interior of the C1 was functional with a simple dashboard featuring large clear instruments and a basic switchgear. Materials were utilitarian, hard plastics, plain fabrics, and straightforward door cards, and equipment levels varied widely depending on trim, with base models offering the essentials and the higher trim giving buyers more comfortable cloth upholstery, tachometers, and better sound systems. Thanks to the front-wheel drive layout, the cabin felt roomier than its predecessors, offering generous legroom for the class. And during the C2 facelift, Opel improved the cabin to keep up with customer expectations, and of these upgrades, some included a more refined dashboard with improved ergonomics and softer finishes, new steering wheel arches and styles, also a higher grade fabrics and more color choices for upholstery, and also eventually for the C3 phase, Opel gave the interior a final refresh as equipment levels were upgraded once again, especially in higher trims such as the Exclusive and the Sporty GT. Features included more sportive seats, improved carpeting, optional power windows, central locking, and even an onboard computer in some models. Interior style cues came closer to the Vectra with a sleeker plastic and more cohesive layout. For the Ascona C, Opel used a family of single overhead cam 4-cylinder engines. Available in petrol and diesel forms, with displacements between 1.3 liter and basically 2 liters. As it all started with a 1.3 liter normal petrol engine with 59 horsepower, giving the car 94 Nm of torque and a 0 to 100 time of 17.5 to 18 seconds, and a top speed of 150 km an hour. Because it was a normal petrol engine, this car had a higher fuel consumption of 7.7 to 8.5 liters per 100 kilometers, and of this variant you also had a super petrol variant called the 1.3S. This had 75 horsepower and 101 Nm of torque, giving the car a better 0 to 100 time of 15 seconds, but since this car was also available with an automatic, it could go up to 18 seconds. And this gave the car a top speed of 155 to 160 km an hour, while having a lower fuel consumption of 7.1 to 8.4 liters per 100 kilometers. You also had the 1.6 normal petrol with 74 horsepower, 123 Nm of torque, giving the car a 0 to 100 time of 14.5 to 16.5 seconds, and the same top speed as the 1.3S of 155 to 160 km an hour, while having a higher fuel consumption of 8.4 to 9.2 liters per 100 kilometers. And of this engine you also had a 1.6S, the super petrol variant, producing 89 horsepower, 126 Nm of torque, and a 0 to 100 time of 12.5 to 15.5 seconds, giving the car also a higher top speed of 165 to 170 km an hour, while somewhat remaining the same average fuel consumption of 7.4 to 8.3 liters per 100 kilometers. You also had the 1.8i, a fuel-injected variant, producing 99 horsepower, 140 Nm of torque, giving the car a very good 0 to 100 time of 11.8 to 13.5 seconds, and also a much higher top speed of 177 to 180 km an hour. And actually, because this car was fuel-injected, you might think that this actually had a better fuel consumption, but it was still, in my opinion, rather high, at 8.6 to 9.4 liters per 100 kilometers. You also had the 1.8e or the other 1.8i, and this had 113 horsepower, 151 Newton meters, and a 0 to 100 time of 10.5 seconds, as this was, as far as I could find, only available with a manual. The top speed also was higher, as the 1.8i, for example, had now a top speed of 187 km an hour, and the average fuel consumption was actually lower than in the other 1.8i, with 8 to 8.8 liters per 100 kilometers. You also had the 2 liter i with 113 horsepower, just like the 1.8i, but this had a bit more torque at 117 Newton meters, giving the car a 0 to 100 time a bit better of 10 seconds, and also remained the same top speed of 187 km an hour, while the average fuel consumption actually was a bit lower at 7.9 liters per 100 kilometers. Of this, you also had the 2 liter GT, also fuel injected, but this time having 127 horsepower, 180 Newton meters of torque, basically being somewhat comparable to an Opel Kadett GSI. And this had a 0 to 100 time of only 9.3 seconds and a top speed of 193 km an hour, while actually having a very decent average fuel consumption of 8.1 liters per 100 kilometers. And for the Ascona, just like in the Ascona B, you now had a diesel engine, this time being smaller at a 1.6 liter diesel, but having 54 horsepower, 96 Newton meters of torque, giving the car a 0 to 100 time of 20 to 25.5 seconds and a top speed of 138 to 143 km an hour, all while having a lower average fuel consumption of 6.2 to 7.6 liters per 100 kilometers. Of the Ascona C, several special versions existed. The most notable version was the Keinath, basically being a Ascona C3 convertible, also known as the KC3, and it was introduced after the 1984 facelift of the Ascona, called the C2, and continued into the final phase between 1987 to 1988, and only 434 production units plus 2 prototypes were created for testing purposes. Across the 3 Ascona generations, the nameplates sold in millions, until the end of the production in October 1988. 1,721,647 Ascona Cs were manufactured, making it one of Opel's strongest sellers in the 1980s across all generations the Ascona family basically reached, as it was a multiple million in cumulative sales, with around 4 million units being sold in total. The Ascona C was replaced in 1988 by the Opel Vectra A, and its immediate predecessor basically was the Ascona B. In the large family or D segment, the Ascona C competed with many mainstream rivals of the 1980s, for example the Ford Sierra, the Ford Cortina and the Volkswagen Passat, but also the Renault 18 and 21 and also some Peugeot midsize models, the Toyota Carina, basically a lot of models. And basically these cars formed the crowded midsize market of the 1980s. Thank you for watching this video. In order to be able to upload more videos in the future, please consider becoming a member on my channel or sending a super thanks on this video. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe for more. Don't forget to check out this playlist with many interesting videos covering various parts of the automotive industry, and I will see you in the next video.